Yes, support adoption and the care of older animals in need. If you saw the lady teaching her cat to communicate with us through buttons and wondered how an old cat could ever learn new tricks, then you do not want to miss this. Ladies, take it away.
All right. So today we have a very special guest. And yeah, we have in front of me the person, not the pair of legs, the person. So she's the famous YouTuber that is behind the channel Billy Speaks. And her name is Kendra Baker. Hi, Kendra. Thanks for coming on. It's funny how we made the joke about your legs because people don't see your face enough.
It's a constant source of entertainment. Yeah.
So thanks for coming on. Once again, it's great seeing you. You're looking good as usual.
You as well. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. So not only did Kendra achieve the extraordinary feat of training an older cat to communicate using the buttons that were supposed to be designed for nonverbal humans, but she also captured the hearts of many people, including me, myself, and her channel, as I said, is Billy Speaks. So there's a lot of patience, a lot of obstacles, a lot of fun stuff that's in her channel. So I'm just going to dive right into it. Without further ado, let's get into the questions because everybody wants to learn from this. So let's talk about the beginning. Billy, obviously, that's your cat. What is it about Billy that inspired you to train an older cat using, I don't know, we don't really think of those buttons when it first comes to training cats. Is usually tricks or giving hands. Why did you make that association? Like, I don't get it. Older animals, buttons that are not designed for them. How did it all start?
Yeah. At the time when we started, there weren't very many animals in general using the buttons, and I couldn't find any other cat. So it was a little bit of a leap for us, but Billy and I have been together since she was a kitten, and we've always had a really great working relationship. So she wasn't necessarily new to training itself. Her entire life has been kind of what else can we learn? What else can we add as far as enrichment? So I don't know whether her background in positive reinforcement training had like any impact on her picking up the buttons, since they rely more on repeated modeling and capturing rather than a behavior reward the way that positive reinforcement training does. But I would just say that it was a natural progression of me wanting to add more enrichment to Billy's life. So it was something new. It was something beyond food puzzles, beyond our hikes, beyond, going outside, beyond just adding another toy. So the thing that I was really excited about with the buttons was the ability for kind of an ever evolving, you can always add on to the enrichment. You get a toy and it's fun, but it doesn't change. And you can get another toy and it's fun, but it also doesn't change. And even food puzzles, you can get a new one, but it's still essentially the same thing. So a lot of the enrichment that we can add for our indoor cats is finite. So I was intrigued by the possibility of something that could grow. And in addition, it was during the pandemic. So Billy and I were both stuck inside. So I think that was probably the biggest impetus behind us starting. It never really even crossed my mind that her age may be a hindrance, just because Billy had been maybe learning things her entire life.
Yeah.
And
What else Billy know?
It just turned 15. She just had her 15th birthday in August. Yeah, we're cruising.
Good job. Now that you mentioned her age. Now, I know there's a lot of stereotypes, not just with cats, but just older anything in general. People are like, oh, you can't teach old dog new tricks. You can't teach old human new tricks, that they're set in their ways or not open to stuff. So now with your experience with Billy, do you think there's some misconceptions about senior cats or maybe a lot of them? Can you share your experience with us regarding that?
Yeah, I find this mindset to be really interesting. And I apologize in advance because it's a soapbox topic for me. But I think more so than age being an impediment to learning, it's whether or not you've experienced change in your life to begin with. A lot of cats in particular, especially indoor cats, aren't really exposed to new things very frequently, right? When people get a cat, they're like, oh, that kid just lives here and just exists. If you've lived in one house, one apartment, not done anything in your entire life, and then something changes, that's a huge issue. And you see it in humans too, right? If you have lived in one place your entire life and you've never traveled, anything that you do is going to be new and scary, right? But if you are from a young age, or even just with slow steps at an older age, you can become accustomed to that change. So that's one side of things. And then the other side is whether or not it's even possible to learn new things at an older age, which I
Mm.
think is really funny because I learn new things every day. And I'm not young anymore. So I think you see that with every human. So do we stop learning at a particular point? No, absolutely not. Does our brain plasticity change? Sure. Yeah. There's been absolutely studies on the fact that learning is potentially easier. I guess that's like a really broad way of describing brain plasticity. But is it
Mm.
easier to learn something when you're younger? And we think about language learning in particular. If you learn a new language when you're a kid, your
Mm.
your grammar, everything's going to be a lot better than if you learn it when you're older. Can
True.
you learn a new language when you're older? Yes, absolutely. We see it all the time.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I think that just saying absolutely you cannot learn new things when you're older it's false. It's just patently false. Are there maybe some slower impacts potentially? Does it change if you have an animal that's been learning their entire life and maybe learning in it of itself is a new change every single time?
Mm.
Maybe that impacts it as well. But I think that just point blank saying that age is the one factor that makes it so that there's no way that you can work with an older animal. I don't believe that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same when grandmas start to take up sports, like when they're at a very old age or learn
Yeah.
to play chess and stuff. I'm sure they can.
Yeah, there's been plenty of studies in humans on learning a new language, forestalling things like dementia and Alzheimer's. So there is a case for continued learning throughout your life and not just like allowing your brain to regress.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But that said, when people say it's impossible to train cats because they're trying, a lot of times they say it from a dog perspective, that dogs are easier to train in comparison. Challenges in patience. What are some challenges that you face when trying to train Billy, or if Billy's training you? And what kind of patience did it require? What was that journey like?
Yeah, I think that typically when you hear, oh, well, cats are harder than dogs to train,
Mm,
it's usually because people are putting their expectations of a dog onto a cat, which I
yeah.
think is not the way to go about it because they're different species and they have different behaviors. It isn't the same way that you would go about doing things. And dogs have been continuously bred to be human companions throughout their entire lives. Cats have largely domesticated themselves. So there's a huge difference
Mm,
in overall behavior and wanting to please that you have between the two. Does that mean that you cannot train cats? Absolutely not. But I think that knowing the basis of your species before you start moving forward with any kind of training is super important. Because if you treat a cat like a dog, you're probably not going to get very far. So yes, I think that potentially people
mm,
who are used to dogs would find cats challenging if they just switched over immediately. Do cats require more patience?
mm,
Don't know. I think maybe they require a little bit more time to think things through. They
mm.
move a bit slower. They're more deliberate in their actions than a dog is going to be when you're starting to train them. And you see it in cat behavior all the time, right? You open the door for them and they're going to sit there and they're gonna look outside. They're gonna be like, I don't know about this. And they're gonna think about it. And that comes from being, but their natural history is they are a predator, but they're also small and they are prey. So they're constantly going to be looking around and making sure that everything is okay before they move forward. Something. So yes, I think cats require patience if you are used to dogs,
Yeah.
potentially.
And those of you in the audience, if you have not seen Kendra's videos, sometimes she have to fast forward them for our viewing pleasure. That is, some of it is not in real time because she's literally waiting for, what is it? Sometimes like over a minute so that
Yeah.
Billy would respond. And it's very interesting because I read a lot of the comments. People are like, "Oh no, it's just by coincidence." I'm like, if it's once, it's coincidence. I've watched enough of your videos to know that, yeah, there's something going on, but yeah, it takes a little bit longer. And thanks so much for fast forwarding because sitting through
Yeah.
it in
I would
real.
I would lose things. I'm like, I think it's interesting that I am known for patience on my channel because I'm not actually a very patient person in real
Mm.
life. So if I had to watch a non-fast forwarded video of just like a cat sitting there thinking, I would personally not watch it. So I fast forward it.
Now that said, in your all the moments that you've shared, with Billy, with the buttons and everything, is there a particular interaction that really stood out that was like, yes, it was like super rewarding or super like heartwarming, remarkable? Was there moments like that?
Yeah, there's been so many. I think that as far as heartwarming, every time she presses the hug button, I melt. Like, of course, I want to hug my cat, right? So I think that's fantastic. But I think so far, we've been doing the buttons for about 3.5 years now.
Mm,
And the most rewarding thing that I've experienced and it's an improvement in cooperative care.
mm,
And for anyone who's not familiar with that term, cooperative care in a nutshell is allowing your pet to participate in their care, them having the choice and control over whether or not something happens. So that can be anything from grooming, whether or not they want to be brushed, whether or not they want to have their nails trimmed, and them allowing it to happen rather than you forcibly making it happen, all the way up to medical care. So things like even up to drawing blood, you can make it so that it is a voluntary procedure.
mm,
So Billy went through a pretty serious medical scare over the summer, and
mhm.
the buttons were so important in improving that cooperative care. She was on medication that tasted horrible. And using the buttons and using positive reinforcement, we were able to make it so that this medication was taken voluntarily. It was one that you couldn't mask in any kind of food. You couldn't trick her. She was going to taste it regardless. So she needed to be the one that was going to say, okay, I'll eat this. Or I would have had to restrain her and pill her twice a day for months. And that's not personally what I want with a relationship with my animal.
Mm,
If the roles were switched, I wouldn't want to be held down and had something like shoved down my mouth twice a day.
yeah.
Sometimes it's necessary, right?
Mm,
I'm a veterinarian. I get it. We have to use restraint sometimes. We have to use force for their own good. But if you don't have to, if you can find a way to make it cooperative care, then your stress levels and their welfare are going to improve greatly.
yeah, I remember in our past podcast. Oh, for those of you that's in the audience, me and Kendra, we've done a few podcasts before, so I'll put that in the description if you want to review it. But I remember there's a part in one of our previous conversations. You said that cats, supposedly in most domesticated settings, they live in a dictatorship. So it's good to give them some sort of agency so that they can choose what it is that they want and what it is that they don't want. I thought that was really
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. Even though the dictatorship is built from a place of love, it
Mm,
is still a dictatorship, and our animals have very little choice
yeah.
in the natural way that they live.
Oh,
So
yeah.
any way that we can allow them that choice, even if it's the little tiny things, I think
Mm.
that it improves their welfare.
Oh, yes. And so now that you mentioned about all the heartwarming, all the good stuff, now how about the benefits for Billy? Other than just the communication stuff, that's obvious, right? That you can find a way. How many buttons are you at right now?
I haven't counted. I think it's like 75, maybe
Yeah,
around there.
remember, it's a lot.
70s.
It's a lot. So that's their vocab right now. So they use these buttons to string up sentences to communicate. Now, except for that part, the communication part, what other benefits do you think this whole process brought Billy? Is it behavior, health, or general well-being? What is it?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things,
Mm,
right? Any kind of enrichment is always a good thing for both mental and physical well being. Something that gives her excitement beyond just the things that she needs to survive, right? So anything that adds to her life is going to improve things. And that's like the initial reason why I wanted these buttons was for the improvement in her enrichment. The cooperative care that we've already touched on. But I think also just her overall demeanor is kind of the best word for it. I guess more curious. She's much more in my business. She's constantly following me. She's actively observing. She's frequently using her buttons. And I think that because the buttons allow for kind of a never ending enrichment tool and it can always be added on,
mm,
it allows for her to experience the world in a new way more often. So things are not always the same. We can always find new things to work on and for her to observe and for her to learn potentially. But a lot of this is still being studied. She's part of a research, an observational research study for interspecies communication. And we try to be really careful about the choice of words that we use. Is she communicating? Are we having a meaningful versus a functional communication? But I think even if you throw the communication, does she understand English out of the equation?
yeah.
There is a benefit to the buttons in the form of enrichment. It's always something new that you are spending time with your animal with.
Mm,
And at the end of the day, does it really matter whether she understands to the extent that we would say that a human would? I don't know. To me personally, it doesn't because it gives her an
mm.
improvement in her overall life.
Yeah. And even as humans, can we also make sure that everything we say is also clearly received? I can't even say that for sure. Sorry, sorry, mom, if you're watching. I love you. Okay, so this leads us to the last question. This is for um cat guardians that are thinking about training their cats or people who are thinking about adopting older cats. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. I think with cats in general, patience is always the best advice. They move slower. They need a little bit more time to decompress.
Mm,
And new things, it takes time for them to check it out. If you're thinking about adopting an older cat, don't expect them to immediately be your best friend. They need to warm up to you. They need to get to know you. When you make a new friend, you're not automatically best friends. And it's the same thing with our pets, right? So you need to form your own relationship. But adult animals at adoption can give you so much love. And also, you don't have to deal with all of that kitten behavior. So that's a plus. So I think on that side of things. And
mm,
then as far as the buttons goes, again, patience, consistency. I get a lot of messages from people that are starting the buttons. And I think usually it stems from them getting the buttons and not actually looking through some of the resources on how to go about modeling.
mm.
And they get really discouraged because their animals are pressing buttons within a couple of days. And that's not really how it works. It takes a little bit of time.
As much as
So,
we want to.
yeah, exactly. So don't get discouraged because it's been 2 days and your animal's not using 75 buttons, right? It's been 3.5 years for Billy and I. I think that maybe slowing down, making sure that you are not putting unrealistic expectations on your cat
Mm,
and just focusing on enjoying the journey together rather than looking at an outcome because that's what it should be. It should be a bonding experience for you and your
mm.
animal. It shouldn't be, this isn't worthwhile unless we have 100 words. That's not the way you should look at it. In general, I think just if your pet isn't picking up a behavior, 9 times out of 10, it's our fault. It's not theirs. We are not being clear with what we're asking them. So really just take a step back, evaluate if what you're doing is clear and consistent. And just if you need to take a break, you guys both take a break and just enjoy yourself in another way.
Thanks. Yeah, because I always tell people, I'm like, not all adoptions are like baby cats and dogs. As I get older too, I'm like, "Oh, I can't do kittens anymore." And I
They're a
wish
lot of work.
they aren't
Yeah.
they? So
Yeah.
rambunctious. And as I say, I'm not getting any younger. I don't know how many more years I can take
Yeah.
take younger cats, even if it's like fostering or just like helping. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I need sleep. But anyways, thank you so much, Kendra. It's always good to have these conversations with you because, as I say, everybody only see your legs. We need to
I know.
see
Yeah.
your face more. And the funny thing is, I always know you as Billy's mom, but actually, in reality, it's Dr. Kendra Baker. That's yeah. It's so weird, so disrespectful of me. I should have called you like Dr. Baker,
Yeah.
but that like it's
I think
Kendra.
I'm probably better well known as Billy's mom than as Dr. Baker. So yeah, no, absolutely. You can call me Billy's mom, not disrespectful at all.
I remember one time I mentioned it in like a comment or something, and then somebody's she's a vet. I'm like, yes, I know.
I know. Sorry.
I'm like, okay. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your journey and for reminding us like the boundless potential within our feline friends, no matter what age, what condition, what it is that we're trying to do, and how to have a good quality time with them and how to enrich both of our lives. And thanks for encouraging the prospective owners, the prospective adopters, fosters, or even people who just want to train their cats. Yeah, thanks for showing us what could be done. And for those of you who have not followed Kendra yet, please do follow her. Her channel is Billy Speaks. I'll put the information in the description. You can find it in her speaker bio. Feel free to reach out if anything. She's super friendly. None of us bite. You can reach out to. Yeah, that's it. Thanks so much, Kendra. I'll see you around.
All right. Bye.
Bye. And back to you, Nikki. Thank you.